Test 1. I've made R-L4, a bit more safe for bioform cross-testing. And after injecting a live mouse with R-L4, over a period of 10 minutes I record no significant changes or visible effects to the creature. Test 1. Fail.
The name is Derek Hilton, a former scientist at laboratories. And for 40 years I've been labeled as one of the greatest minds on Earth. 15 of those years I've spent trying to revolutionize medicine. I've been trying to formulate a cure to the unstoppable cancer. For 15 years I've bashed heads with other great minds, and we've come to one conclusion in our studies. This is nearly impossible. The sheer complexity of the situation was jaw-dropping, and it seemed as if we were getting no ground. 5 years ago, we gave up trying to cure cancer as it seemed too much of a daunting task for modern technology. Recently, I went back to the lab to continue with what we left off, hoping maybe the few years of age have brought with them wisdom that I didn't have beforehand. That was 9 months ago, when I first started playing God with diseases and creatures. And I think, just maybe, I might have created something that could bring the normal human consciousness to a crumbling end. I started off small, splicing, rearranging, and playing with DNA. I thought if I wanted to get rid of the tree completely, why not tear it from the roots? After this proved to be a dead end, I thought, why not give the body the strength to kill the cancer itself? Maybe that could work. So I made a drug, a serum that could boost the immune system of any creature with a pulse to such a high rate that the diseases such as chickenpox wouldn't even require a vaccine. Truly, this serum of mine would make me billions, but I needed to know if it could actually do what I wanted it to do. And that's to cure cancer. I named my beautiful creation R-L4.
Test 2. I've done some enhancements to R-L4 and exposed another test subject to it. After injecting the test subject with various deadly diseases, and only minor ones were eradicated from the host body, my conclusion is to up the dosage of R-L4.
I kept my studies and breakthrough to myself. I didn't want to risk my idea being taken away from me and used to the benefit of the government or any other high-ranking leaders. Soon I began mastering the serum and perfecting it, making it less deadly, less detectable, more efficient, and with all my improvements came the final test, where I proved to be standing on solid ground with my experiments.
Test 3. After multiple changes to R-L4, I proceeded to give the serum to another test subject, following through with injecting it with as many deadly viruses and diseases I could get my hands on. The mouse began convulsing and lost its pulse. Test 3. Failure. About 15 minutes went by as I was about to dispose of the mouse, until suddenly it began moving and showing signs of life. Immediately placing the creature into its chamber, I ran tests on it. Everything was fully functional and there seemed to be no damage to the creature whatsoever. I took a blood test and it revealed the mouse had none of the diseases I infected it with. This was a breakthrough. Test 3. Success.
Well, I did. I concocted a cure for all known diseases, but I wasn't too sure if this would work on a human. There's only one way to find out. Instead of doing what any other mad scientist would do, paying an idiot money to be my guinea pig, I decided on morals and sought to testing my own creation on myself. So I did the unspeakable and transmitted myself with various semi-dangerous diseases. I proceeded to take R-L4 and immediately felt effects. Lightheaded and drowsy, I held myself upon a table and slowly regained senses. Hoping all was well, as of course this concoction of mine was quite fast, I tested my blood for the same diseases I injected myself with, and to my surprise and glee, 0. Nothing showed up. This only meant one thing. The diseases were not found. It actually worked. I jumped around like a child on Christmas morning in front of the gift tree. I had to push this even further. I increased the dosage of R-L4 into my bloodstream while injecting the deadliest diseases and viruses straight into my blood like a heroin addict. This brought painful side effects. I fell to the ground with my head throbbing and heart beating out of my chest. This went on for what felt like 30 minutes, and just as it appeared, it disappeared. There was no pain whatsoever, and checking if I had the diseases, I then again came to the same road. Nothing. I was cured. And just like that, I made a cure for every known disease in humankind, but I still couldn't be sure if it could cure it all, as I had one more foe to battle. Cancer. To a normal person, you'd think there's no other way but to find a cancer patient and get them to be my test subject to a better life, but it's safe to say I'm no normal person. Cancer? Just as any other intruder of the body, it can be contracted just as easy. How, you may ask? Well, the answer is one simple word: radiation. If I exposed my body to dangerous levels of radiation, I'd have cancer knocking on my doorstep. So I did just that. With some science magic, I made a radioactive pill that should be bad enough to do what I needed to do. I drank up and waited. Days. With no reaction. I finally got the first symptom. I was coughing up blood. This was good news. Well, to me. I had a dangerous cancer growing in my left lung, which would surely be my end in weeks to months' time if I left it untreated. But my plans were not to die. I took a shot of R-L4 and in a few minutes I collapsed. I awoke on the floor in a messy puddle of sweat and unidentified bodily fluids. My body was beyond weak, but my urge to see my results were far stronger. I ran tests and, to my surprise, the cancer had grew worse, thickening and spreading to my right lung and outwards. I had surely killed myself. As a last resort, I made a pill that was high in concentration of R-L4, which should have been enough to give me a quick death. I couldn't live with failure, so I decided to go out with my creation. I swallowed the pill. Oh God. Where am I? After taking what should have been the last thing I'll ever experience, I awoke in a dark room with a buzzy overhead light that steady kept the room between dark and not so dark. The first thing I noticed when I awoke was the smell, a mossy smell that corresponded with a mushroom-infested lake. Then the buzz of a light. Hello? Can anyone hear me? Where am I? Slowly my eyes began to adjust to the lighting and I could see more of the room. The walls seemed to be dripping some black viscous, possibly where the smell is originating from, but the liquid had no clear origin. Maybe an oil leak. I began investigating my room, just trying to figure out where I've gotten myself. The room itself seemed almost impossible. What I mean is, it seemed to be an enclosed space with just enough room to run in a tight circle that the walls didn't look 20 feet apart. But when walking in the room, towards the walls specifically, this distance seemed to increase. Like the wall was moving away from me, just as I was to it. Hello? Can anyone hear me? The ground was wet with some unknown liquid that seemed to make a constant sloshing sound every step I took. Suddenly I found a door, a large metal door that appeared to be for the worst criminals in high-security jails you normally see in movies. There was no door handle in sight, just a plain black, grey steel door. I tried banging on the metal door to see if anyone would come help me. Somebody help me! I'm trapped in here! As I kept screaming and shouting for help, thinking maybe I might actually die in here, the door out of nowhere opened. With a hellish squeak, the door finally opens and reveals what lies beyond its confinement. At first it was nothing but white light, far too bright to see anything, but my eyes eventually adjusted and I saw what appeared to be a room. But not any ordinary room. This room looked familiar. Like I knew the room beforehand, and that's when the realization dawned to me. This was my bedroom from my old house when I was just a child. It made no sense at all because the room was burned to the ground from a house fire I started myself because I was a curious and ambitious child. But no, here it was, the whole room looking as if nothing had ever happened. It took me a minute to grasp myself, but then I stepped into the room. Everything immediately changed from the smell to the temperature. I stood in awe for a moment, looking at the room, still amazed at the possibility of the situation. I turned back to where the metal door that led me here was, and it was gone. Nothing at all. Just the wall and setting look of my childhood bedroom. Now this made no sense, but the initial shock from seeing my room in the first place quickly overpowered the impossibility of an entire wall and metal door changing and disappearing. I walked around my room, touching and feeling around. Brought back old memories. Good memories. And at the moment I wished I could go back to relive them. While happily looking around, I heard something coming from outside. It sounded like footsteps running around the floor, and suddenly the door of my bedroom suddenly opened, and there stood a tiny boy staring at me with a smile across his face, holding a toy action figure. Then logical thinking hit me just at the moment. What if this room just so happens to be very similar to mine, but obviously is not, and I had broken into some family's home and found myself in their child's bedroom? This was not the most pleasing of thoughts, but soon realizing the severity of the situation, I decided to make my way out before I caused any trouble. I walked to the little boy, still staring at me with a smile, and gently nudged him to the side as I was walking out. He said something to me.
Mama is gonna kill you.
I don't think I'm supposed to be in here, so I'll be out without any issues.
Awkwardly walking past the boy and towards the stairs that led to the bottom floor, I made my way down the stairs and leading straight to the front door. This was all gonna be over and just a little mistake. After I walk out the door, I'll continue on with my life and they with theirs. Oh, so I thought. Walking towards the door, oh so eager to open it and set myself free into the open world, I put my hand on the door handle and immediately was shot with a sick feeling in my stomach. I felt as if I was about to be turned inside out. I looked to my right and there by the hallway stood a large figure that represented a overweight yet tall muscular man. The figure just stood there, and for a second I was questioning whether what I was seeing was actually real or another figment of my imagination.
Hello? I don't remember how I got here. I just want to leave, that's all. I mean no harm. I swear.
I spoke with a trembling voice, desperately hiding the terror, but clearly shook about the person's presence. He or she, I didn't know in the moment, didn't move a bit. Just stood half in the dark and barely visible, but just visible enough to guarantee their presence. The person reacted not to my comment. It's as if they didn't hear me or they were deliberately ignoring my words. God knows how much time passed with us just standing frozen and staring at each other. The sickening feeling in my stomach never ceased. In fact, it grew larger as the seconds went by, as if something in me sensed danger coming from the figure. This was a classic stare down between predator and prey, and sadly, I was the mouse to this cat in front of me.
Hey, did you hear what I said? I need to leave and I do not want to be in here any more than you want me to.
I was beginning to lose patience and got a bit aggressive towards the figure. I was losing my temper now and I decided to step towards the figure and I took a step forward. The figure did the same. But with its leg span getting closer than 4 feet to me. My stomach dropped as the figure was now in the light and every detail was clear to me. This couldn't have been any normal human. A woman, with a impossibly large build for any female. The figure was an assortment of large muscles everywhere with more detail than the other. It was an unsettling sight to say the least. The face of this woman was a mess of scars and stitches, its mouth open, and teeth that rivaled those of sharks. Another distinct detail I picked up on were the eyes, a black abyss of nothingness and stains below the sockets. Blood, for sure. Could she see me?
Please, ma'am, I know I shouldn't be in here. I don't know how it happened, but I need to leave.
I spoke and the thing ignored and kept staring down at me. Even though eyeless, I could feel its piercing stare in my soul, and I knew the longer I stayed in this house, the higher my chances of dying a slow, painful death at the hands of what stood in front of me increased. Clearly, I wasn't planning on talking this out like adults, so I had to hatch a plan immediately to put as much distance in between it and I as possible. Nothing coming to mind as my options were critically low, I decided the only way out of here was to run. The front door was locked, but if I could find a clear window, I'll have to jump for it. So I quickly gathered my sanity and, bolting through the house, praying to God that the thing would be too slow to catch me, I realized the dimensions of the house were weirdly large. I ran and ran, but the house seemed to grow only larger, as if escape was impossible. I ran out of breath pretty quickly and tumbled down where I surely were to meet my death. I turned over, giving up, and there it was, the figure standing right above me, too close to try anything to help. It moved down to my level, its body bending and contorting in ways its mass shouldn't let it. At my face it said,
"It's not your time to suffer. Neither was it your time to die. When it is, you'll be back. Back to me. And then, just then, will I enjoy hunting you down and torturing you. Until you can take no more."
Please. Where even am I?
The world where all the dead come to suffer.
Hell?
None of that exists. You humans, you live a life destroying all you're given and killing for entertainment and selfish power. You humans die and you all end up here. With me.
We all end up here? But there's good people on Earth. You want to tell me that no matter how good you are, it won't change that you'll be tortured for all eternity?
As my curiosity only grew larger, I had dozens of other questions to ask, but suddenly, my ears were filled with a ringing. Then, I got up from a cold floor in terror, looking around for the creature that stood in front of me, and there I was, in my lab, and everything seemed normal enough. I remembered my experiment on myself with R-L4, and the cancer that grew in my lungs. With the last bit of energy I had, I walked towards my computer and stared at the results.
Cancer cells not detected.